Hey, folks, welcome to District Talk. This week, we have guest John Tobry. John, thanks for coming back.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, yeah.
So summer got a little much for us.
Did.
Our schedules.
It
at
got
least,
away from
right?
ourselves, yeah. So, and I. That's kind of like, speaking of, it's been a while. This year has flown by.
Wow.
Quick.
Yeah. I can't believe it's October.
Yeah.
Which, hey, happy 47 to me here very shortly.
Yeah, happy 47. Yeah.
I got 12 days.
Yeah.
12 days of being 46. We'll keep loving that for a little bit.
So and we're the same age, so 47, or we will be the same age at least.
Yeah.
At least for a few months, and then I gotta.
Somebody's got to be the older
close
one.
To the 50s.
We'll say it's you.
So, but no, I appreciate you coming by today. And kind of going into our theme for this episode. I thought what we would do is, because we are into October, we got together way back in the beginning of the year. Can't believe it's been. I mean, it feels like it's been like that, but we got together in the beginning of the year, and a lot has changed just over the course of this past 10 months or so.
I would say, on one hand, those predictions were wildly wrong and very correct at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
It all depends on which one of those statistics
depends on
and
what you want
things
to look at.
Yeah,
and it depends on what is important to you too. At the same time,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people don't care if sales are up 5%. You know,
that's very true.
They're gonna care. You know what I mean? They're gonna care maybe that prices might be up 5%.
Yeah.
But what we're alluding to though is that we did this episode back when in the beginning of the year that was basically the 3 5s. So this year we were predicting that this was going to be the year of the 5s, right?
Correct.
Interest rates in the 5s.
Yes.
Sales would be up 5%.
Yes.
And home prices would be up 5%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's the year of the 3 5s. So what I thought we would do today is kind of go over just some of where we're at, and kind of talk about some of the changes that have happened this past year.
I think that's a great thing, because I think there's a lot of things people should understand. And one of them being is, if you continue to sit on the sidelines, you will pay more for a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is just, we said it then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just letting you all know, we didn't lie.
No.
That's the truth. You're going to pay more for a house if you waited this year. Just like when you told me in 2020, I'm going to wait for the crash. Well, the crash is still not here, and house prices have gone up. But let's talk about that in some these are statistics, black and white. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This is just the facts.
Okay.
Right? So people can interpret whatever they want out of this. But so if we look at rates year over year.
Year over year, yeah, so we're down.
So this will be in October to October at this point. When last October, rates were almost 8%, if not 8%.
We were at 8%, and so I remember, just trust me, this is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
November was a very sad time for us.
Yes,
in 2023, we were definitely pushing 8.125 ish or so in the interest rate department.
There you go, straight out of the horse's mouth.
We were up there.
Yeah.
We are down to, so where rates are at right now, at least as of today. So we got very, 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 very close to the 5, getting into the 5s, right?
Yes.
So
we kind of touched 6.
We touched 6.
Say.
Yeah, we touched 6. Yeah, and if you were an FHA or a VA buyer, you're in the 5s. So you are in the 5s if you are an FHA or VA buyer. But for our conventional folks, we're still in the 6s. So so we're still pretty close. But as far as the actual average interest rate goes, we have come down. We're starting to see the refi boom for those folks that bought. So the people that did buy last year, and we'll kind of dive into the where we've grown as far as sales go. But for those folks that did buy last year, we're starting to see them come back and refinance now, which
was
cool.
the move.
Yeah.
Which was why you bought last year, because date the rate, marry the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I know you hate because you said that before. You're like, I hate that. I hate that slogan.
Well, it's just cliches in general
very
because
cliche,
they can sound.
But it's true though.
Whatever. Right.
It's very true.
Right. But it is true in this case. Those people were able to buy the same house for less than what you can buy it today. And now they're refining into a better interest rate.
Right.
And most of these people will refi again maybe in another year or two. Mm-hmm. But this is why you marry the house. So we can look at this year over year. Closed sales are only up 0.2%. Pending sales, though, year over year are up 15.7%. New listings are up 3%. And active listings, crazy, are up 18.9%.
Wow.
Now, these statistics, just to make clear, are for the DC metro area.
The
okay?
DMV, yeah.
So we're calling the a lot of counties in Maryland, Virginia, and obviously DC. But that the active listings up 18.9%. That correlates to roughly 2,500 more houses. And that's all of them from condos to single family homes. So that is a good sign for the buyer.
Yeah.
Except for inventory was already too low. So it really didn't make any damn difference in the world.
We're still low inventory.
Right. It's still low inventory.
We still have a low inventory issue.
While it's increased, it's not enough to make a difference in the fact that sellers are still in control of the market.
Yeah. So would you say then that this past year, actually, I mean, what do you think is driving that push in listings and push in pending sales and so forth? Like,
I think the increase in listings was while the interest rate was very high at 8%.
Yeah.
People held off on listing their homes because they understood that wasn't the best market to put it in.
Yeah.
Even though the inventory was still low in those houses still sold.
I would say this fall has been definitely a change in the optimism of the market, where folks are starting to see, okay, rates are being cut, the Fed's cutting rates, right?
Yeah.
And they're projected to continue to cut rates.
For sure.
So there's a lot of opportunity in the market. There's a lot of optimism in the market. And I think that being said, we're starting to see. We're just starting to see. I mean, it's yeah.
And the one thing I think we need to keep in mind in this conversation is the COVID years through the traditional real estate seasons out the window. Mm-hmm. Where now I can show you graphs and you can see the January, February, March, we're going like this. April, we're up. We level out. We go up in July. And then we kind of decrease through the rest of the year, right? That's normal. That's what it should look like. And you can see that on a bar graph very clearly at this point in time.
Yeah.
So I think what people need to understand is, again, we live in a very insulated market compared to your, I don't know, Florida, Arizona's, some of the places that boomed during COVID for no good reason, like say Boise, Idaho. It's my favorite place to pick on. I have nothing against Boise, Idaho.
You just like saying.
Yeah,
Boise.
I mean, I do like saying Boise, Idaho. There is something about that. But the idea of you can't tell me one person that has ever looked at you in honesty and said, I want to move to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
Right? But people did because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And prices were awesome.
I read an article this morning actually about Arizona, and Arizona is still doing very well as far as the real estate market goes.
Yeah, actually,
that's going crazy.
Yeah, I use Arizona, and Chad is right to hit me on that mark there. Arizona traditionally has a boom or bust market. Right now, that is not true. right? So, and not that
well,
we're dealing in that area.
Well, no, I mean, Arizona is very susceptible because they were one of the ones that got really hard hit by the early 2000s, the housing bubble of 2008.
I mean, those houses lost 40% or more in some cases, right? So they are one of the traditional boomer bust markets, but not happening this time around as much as may say. But I just saw an article about Florida, particularly, that the Great Migration is over. And, because people get to Florida and then realize that it isn't all, sunshine and beauty all the time. And I'm not talking about hurricanes or anything like that. And my God, because we happen to be filming this the day after a hurricane. I hope the best for those people and that everything worked out the best it could. But I'm not really even speaking of that, just that Florida isn't perfect. It's hot all the time.
Well, you know what? And
right? And people have to adjust to that.
It's funny that you say that because I know when I was in sales, I would work with a lot of folks that were moving back to the area. So granted, we're DC metro area, right? So DMV. They had moved down to Florida or south, I should say, but mainly Florida. And they were moving back because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. It was or they missed their kids, they missed their grandbabies.
That was a perfect thank you for that, because I was going to say, I personally know a mom and dad type thing, where a good friend of mine's parents, who have done exactly that. They lived down there for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it was, and enjoyed it at some level. But as the insurance claims and all these other things became more and more obtrusive in their lives, and they realized that there were several months a year that, okay, it's beautiful, but it's too damn hot for me at 70 years old or whatever it is. They have moved back to the area. You're exactly right, because the kids are here and this and that, and so whatever. We don't want to get too sidetracked on Florida.
All right,
but in general terms, that yes, other places in the country have more difficulty in their housing markets than we do. Again, I'll give you the short and sweet of it. We have a giant federal government. We have a giant military presence. We have all the contractors that go with that military. And then we have Amazons and data centers and all these things, jobs that don't go away, which means our market can only be hit so hard by whatever the ups or downs are of a real estate market.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about interest rates. So this is the year of the fives, right? So the interest rates didn't quite get to the fives, except for, like I said, the FHA and the VAs. The other aspect of the fives, we had two other areas that we were going to hit fives, which was the 5% increase in home sales. What would you say? You got all the statistics.
So plainly said, the year-over-year closed sales 0.2%.
Okay.
So while more homes have come to the market, the actual transactions are about the same as last year.
Okay.
So it really didn't change.
So we didn't get the 5% more than what we
did. Right. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that we thought interest rates would come down throughout the year. They did not. So that kept us basically on the same pace as last year.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. You can't really argue that.
Yeah.
What I would say though is that the median price. We were talking about a 5% increase.
5% increase. So that's the third five. So,
right. So I'll give you the major counties that make up the DMV, right?
Okay.
And we can argue about what the DMV is, but I'm giving you the basics here.
Give us the basics.
If you want more information, you can contact Chad or I will be glad to provide it. But if we look at the median sales prices in our major counties, so Montgomery County up year over year, 5.4%.
There we go.
Prince George's County up 5%. So dead on the estimate.
Two of our biggest counters that we work with, at least. So.
Loudoun, surprisingly, 2.7%.
Oh.
Would have expected that to be higher if you would have made me guess. But Loudoun is further away from D.C., so you do have to consider that in the conversation. So on that note, Fairfax, Closer to DC, up 10.8%.
Wow. And that's already one of the biggest. Isn't that like one of the biggest?
If it's not the biggest sales county and the highest price.
Okay.
I mean, it
in the
has
country.
to be. Yeah. I mean, right up there, right?
Right.
Arlington, even closer,
Okay.
9.9%.
Okay.
Frederick County, 3.2%.
Hey, good. Okay.
And then the massive outlier is actual Washington, D.C. So we don't have a county there. It just is the city.
The city.
Down 3.2%.
Wow. 3.2% is down.
Yeah,
Okay.
down 3.2% in median sales price.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So in general terms, if you were looking to move to DC and you've been sitting on the sidelines and ready to jump in, maybe you were right.
Might be good.
Every other person who told me you were waiting for the housing market to crash and you were waiting for lower prices, you were wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I put it any more clearly? You were wrong.
Even being down 3%
here's the percentages.
Even being down
it.
3% doesn't mean that we're in a housing crash, though.
Oh no!
Yeah.
By no means
DC's
is
in a housing
DC.
crash.
By no means is DC in a housing crash.
No.
Yes. So don't please. Yes. Thank you. Don't take that as what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Just that there's enough inventory in DC that it is not pushing the prices up as substantially as you may be.
Yeah.
But it is the highest priced area of any of these counties we can talk about per square foot, if you want to put it in those terms. It's the most expensive.
And people are getting creative in DC. I think we talked about this earlier, where they're taking row homes, right, and turning them into multi-unit properties.
Right. And part of that is an affordability conversation, right?
Yeah.
So we can take this row home that's whatever, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square feet, and we could redo the whole thing. And now it's modernized and it's worth whatever, $3.5 million.
Yeah. But
how many 3.5 million buyers do we have? Not enough. So that's not a good plan for the people who are those type of flippers, for lack of a better term. So they take that 4,000 or 5,000 square foot townhome, row home, and turn it into 2, 3, 4 different condos, right? Because it allows them now to have a $500 to $600 $1 million sale and 3 or 4 of them in one home.
Right.
So it's more meat on the bone, so to speak, right, as far as profit. So that's good for them. But we also need more housing in DC. And there is not more land. So the only way to get more is to take a single place and make it 3, 4, 5 places. Right? So DC is its own, has always been, and will be in the future, its own market compared to the DC metro. Right? There are times that DC is hotter than the rest of the metro, and there are times it is slower than the rest of the metro. And that's just how it's going to be. Right? And it's all about what are we doing as a society, and it isn't necessarily living in the city right now. 5 years from now, we'll see. Maybe that's different.
Okay, so we've got the 5s down. So we got the 3 5s down, and let's sort of switch gears because we have a few more minutes to chat.
All right.
Let's talk about some of the other changes that have happened this year, because this has been a roller coaster of a year, right?
Oh, it's been insane.
So we had the NAR settlement that came down, or NAR.
National Association of Realtors, for any of you who want to know what the acronym is. But at the end of the day, yes, it was a NAR settlement, and it was also against individual brokerages. But when I say individual brokerages, well, like the rest of the world, there's usually an umbrella that owns multiple things. Right. Like anything else. That's how our whole world works now, right? So there were bigger entities that owned several brand names that you all know, whether it be Century 21 or Long and Foster, right? Owned by different conglomerates, but still owned by something bigger than them. So we ended up in this situation where there were lawsuits. That the major one was the Burnett lawsuit, and that was happening in Missouri. Apparently, Missouri never had a buyer brokerage agreement, is my understanding. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a lawyer or an expert on all of these conversations. So I'm going to be a little top level because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, basically. But at the end of the day, so Missouri, as I understand it, and some other jurisdictions or states did not have a buyer brokerage agreement, which in our region has existed since the 90s. And it should have always existed, in my opinion. But either way, there was a lawsuit out there that basically said that there was a monopoly type aspect to the real estate industry, that we were forcing sellers to pay the buyer agent commission. Right. And again, a lawyer can explain this to you better. So please, like I'm putting this in big parentheses for everyone out there. Right. But at the end of the day, that lawsuit and a couple other copycat type lawsuits with some ambulance chasing lawyers, because we can all hate lawyers. Right. So let's just stay on that bandwagon. Made some bigger issues out of things that I think could have been handled in different ways. But at the end of the day, lawsuits, this is where we're at. A lot of them got settled out of court without true judgments. The DOJ was also involved in these lawsuits. What has happened because of that, and we did reference this through a couple of our conversations throughout the year, that it has decoupled the seller commission and the buyer agent commission, right? Or the listing agent commission and the buyer agent commission, better said. What that means for you all as consumers is, in general terms, I can tell you this happened on August 14th was when it was official. In all ways, I can tell you it's been business as usual for the most part.
However.
Yeah, big however.
Okay, so basically so what I'm understanding is that essentially the buyer's commission, right? Mm-hmm. So meaning you are the realtor representing the buyer, right?
Okay.
The buyer's commission was lumped into the overall commission of the sale of the home.
Yeah.
And then that listing agent would split that commission with the buyer agent with you, if you're the buyer's agent.
Yeah, that is right. That is as perfectly said as could be.
We no longer allowed to do that.
Correct.
Okay, so now we have to negotiate up front, or we at least have to say.
Well, there's two different negotiations.
Okay, so negotiation with the client.
Right. So previously, before this, on the MLS. We would know that the seller was offering X% of buyer agent commission.
Okay.
And for the most part, like say I was representing Chad as a buyer, we might have agreed on paper that it was going to be a certain percentage plus there's always a brokerage fee of my brokerage is $3.95, by the way. Cheaper than most. So I'm just going to make that point. So, so come my way. Yeah. But either way, so we'd agree upon X percentage in this. But at the end of the day, we would get to the home. And for the most part, as an agent, I would just accept whatever that seller was offering, whether it be 2%, 2.5%, 3% of the sales price, right? But now it's changed that conversation. So to begin with, Chad being the buyer in this scenario, Chad and I would have a conversation and we would agree upon a percentage of commission for me as the buyer agent. Then we would go out and look at homes, and then we would have to negotiate, or let me rephrase that. Now we need to negotiate with the seller what percentage they are willing to pay, if any, right? They may refuse to pay any amount. which then means Chad is responsible as the buyer for the agreed upon commission, right? So this is where it may not be cheaper for the buyer by any means. But we're going to negotiate. And for the most part, I will tell you that sellers are still understanding that they're going to pay something, right?
Yeah.
And I would tell you, if you came to me to list your home, I would be preparing you for that fact of if you're going to offer zero, you've eliminated a certain amount of buyers. That's a poor choice.
I would think a lot of buyers.
Yes. Yeah. I can't put a percentage on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you can, even as a mortgage guy, I don't know that you can.
I could, no.
Right?
No.
But you've eliminated a certain amount of buyers.
The people that are putting their money down are putting what they have.
Right.
Like they're not, there's no room to put another 2 or 3% down for commission.
Right. And particularly in the first time home buyer market.
Oh my gosh.
So let's just pretend you eliminated every first time home buyer. You've eliminated at least a third of the market. At least. Right? So that's a poor decision because ultimately the best way as a listing agent I can get you more money is to get multiple offers, and now I can negotiate with 3, 4, 5 different offers and get somebody to pay more for your home. Right, or give you better terms. So now we are in the situation of that the buyer is, quote, responsible for the buyer agent commission. Now, in real practice, and this is not just for me, we were just talking to Joel, one of the other members of District. What's
District Pro, District? He's both.
Sorry.
District.
I didn't know which side of the conversation to put him on. But an agent, regardless, with District Home Loans, and he is saying the same thing as me, that in general terms, I'm not seeing much difference. We're just negotiating it, and we're still getting a lot of it paid for. But Chad and I were discussing this earlier. You also need to be smart as a negotiator, as a seller. When I say that, smart as a negotiator when selling. I recently have an example of I helped a client list their home, sell it, which turned around and made them a cash buyer on the other side. Right. So granted, we had some power as a cash buyer, but either way, we made an offer on another home, and we made a strong offer of list price for this particular situation, which I think it was listed at the top end of the market for the condition of the home, right? And because it had been a rental, so there were clearly some things that could be in better shape. I'll put it, as easily as possible. At the end of the day, we made a strong offer, list price, asked for the agreed upon commission that I and the buyer had agreed to, and the listing agent had to come back to me with the seller's negotiating point and said, "We'd love to accept your offer, but with the buyer paying all of the commission." Frankly, it was kind of, we talk about buyers making offers that are kind of an insult, right, to the seller.
Right.
Well, frankly, this was an insult to the buyer that we'd made a strong offer as a cash buyer. We'll close in 9 days, and here's your $350,000 in this particular case, right?
Yeah.
And to come back and not make a legitimate negotiation, to come back and offer zero was a slap in the face, right? When we're giving you a pretty damn good terms to start. So we ended up negotiating that. We got 3/4 of of our negotiated commission.
So 1.5%. Okay. All right.
I don't like to talk in percentage. I'll let the mortgage guy say percentages. Yes.
Okay.
So he is correct in that.
All right.
So we ended up negotiating the majority of what was the asked commission, and then turned around and we still have a home inspection contingency.
Yeah.
Well, when you negotiated in a strong fashion to start the deal, well, we're going to negotiate in strong fashion now that we're at this part of the deal,
sure,
where the buyer has more power, because we're in the deal. The buyer has more power at the home inspection time because now we're under contract, and the closest way for you as the seller to get your money is to get through this deal, not put it back on the market. By the way, your house is tainted if we put it back on the market.
Yeah.
So now we're holding more cards, and we negotiated strong. And you know what happened? I got my client another big chunk of cash plus that other 0.5% of commission. So did that really work out for the seller? No. No, the seller aided in every way possible because they just didn't negotiate fairly out of the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it made me, as an agent, want to stand up more for my client.
Well, sure, of course.
Right?
Of course.
Like you kind of annoyed me with coming with such a offer 0.5%, 1%, offer something.
A little something.
Don't come back at 0, especially when we're offering you $350,000 in cash in a 9-day closing.
A 9-day closing, no less.
Right? Because it normally, just for you all out there, in case you don't understand, normally takes 21, 30 days, give or take, right? Sometimes a little longer with certain deals. So that we're willing to give you a big chunk of cash like that, and that's how you want to negotiate. And by the way, I come from a contracting background, so I can walk through the house and see the wood floors that need a lot of work and that the microwave's broken. And by the way, I know this dimmer switch downstairs is not wired correctly because I have to turn the one on to get the other one to work, right? So, I understand all of those things out of the gate, and damn it, I'm going to stand up for my client. So the point being
taken is you don't know who's going to be walking through your house.
Damn straight. Damn straight. That sums it up very well, Chad.
All right. Well, hey, John, I really appreciate you coming by today. This has been a pretty good wrap up of the year. I mean, there's a lot of other things that have happened.
We could dig into hours worth of details.
There's still lots of things. I know we were going to talk about TOPA, but we're kind of starting to get out of time. But,
TOPA is a whole nother deal.
TOPA is a whole nother thing.
Although Maryland did it better than DC. That's where we'll leave it for today. We can talk another day.
Maybe we'll talk about that another time. But TOPA is that's kind of the new thing that's happening right now with us, at least in Maryland. It's been around for a while for some other parts.
Yeah,
but
DC's had it for I'm not sure how long. As long as I've been in real estate, longer than that. But Maryland has introduced something similar. It is a positive for potential buyers and people who are renting right now. Mm-hmm. But like everything else, it has its hiccups.
Tenants Occupancy to Purchase Act or something like that. It's like something like that.
Tenants Opportunity to Purchase Act.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, if you are an investor and you have a rental, your renter has first right to the property as far as the purchase of the property.
Right.
So, but maybe we'll do another episode on that sometime.
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff on that.
There's a lot of stuff. So, okay. Well, John, really do appreciate you coming by. Are you on Instagram?
Absolutely.
Okay.
John Toby Realtor on Instagram, John Toby Realtor on Facebook. And I'm kind of getting a YouTube thing going, but that's a little behind the scenes.
Well, so everybody, John, we really appreciate you coming by today, chatting with me. And to our folks out there listening, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our show. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good one.